It is time to finally build that God Squad. Stay frosty and head to buymaddencoins.com for the cheapest, fastest, and most reliable MUT coins on the market. I'll even help you shave off a few bucks. Use code DIRECTOR at checkout for 20% off. Yo, what up, brothers? What's up? It's the Director. All right, Madden fans, we got another update today, this time for the franchise players, franchise mode. I think a lot of guys are really hoping that franchise transforms, maybe gets some kind of overhaul. A lot of guys feel that franchise has maybe been a bit stagnant for a while. A lot of guys, I feel like, they want to go back to the days of NFL 2K, you know, the kind of depth that we saw in those older games. Some people are really, confused as to why we don't see those in modern day titles. Just because the amount of immersion and paid attention to detail is quite impressive in those old games. So in this video, we're going to go over these franchise updates coming from the point of view of a MUT player. Haha, don't kill me. I know a lot of you guys, think MUT maybe, killed Madden because so many resources were put into there. And I'm not going to argue against that. I do feel like, MUT is a huge moneymaker. And so a lot of resources are put into Madden Ultimate Team. But for me, I did start out in Madden playing franchise mode. Back in the day, as a young kid, actually new to the sport of American football. And the immersion of Madden was pretty fantastic for me. The franchise mode, playing seasons, growing a team, creating a team and stuff like that. That was great. That's one of the first reasons I got into Madden. Slowly after that, getting into Madden Ultimate Team, that's really what, captured my attention. Just, the thought of being able to play with legends and, compose a team of all the NFL players and stuff like that. That did grab my attention, and I've been kind of an enthusiast ever since then. But I wanted to give you guys my perspective of franchise because I do love franchise, all right? Just because I love MUT and I cover a lot of MUT doesn't mean I don't play franchise. I play hours and hours of franchise, just in the hopes that, maybe we can find some sort of improvement through every single Madden, trying to get back to the depth and paid attention to detail like we used to have. And I would say for me, the most important thing is immersion. As a NFL fan, I want to be immersed into that world of NFL football. I want to feel like, I'm part of that world, that I'm have some kind of control over, either as a coach, a manager, even a player. So yeah, let's go over this details, over these updates, and I'll give you guys my thoughts, and then I'll give you guys some of the things that I would like to see. I'm not a pro franchise player. There's guys out there, Bangle and other dudes that do rebuild C4. Those guys are awesome. They really know what they're talking about. But for me, I like to say I'm a very immersive kind of person, so I'm really good at, presentation. I feel like I have good vision for stuff like that, immersion and things like that. So I'm going to go over that, but it doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to, the mechanics of franchise, when it comes to, the modes in franchise, the things that need to be paid attention to. So anyway, I regressed. Let's just get into this video. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this kind of content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps out a lot. Let's get into these updates. So the reason that, sorry for the long intro, but there's not a lot to go over here, guys, in the Madden 21 Classic franchise updates that the EA put out today with their gridiron notes. So we'll just go over these really quick, and I'll tell you guys my thoughts, tell you guys what I would like to see in franchise mode going forward. But as far as Madden 21, it seems like the changes are pretty minuscule. The new X Factors make their way into franchise. More details on X Factors in Madden 21 coming soon. So obviously, that's a big part of Madden is the abilities nowadays, and they're not revealing that for a few more weeks, it seems like. Franchise has an expanded wild card playoff round to match the real-life NFL, which now features 3 games for each conference instead of 2. Well, I mean, the NFL's changing, so I feel like the game probably should change along with it, making sure it's authentic to how the NFL is actually functioning right now. Updated all rookie contract amounts to be more authentic to the actual draft rookie contracts for all 7 rounds. Okay, so these are just, numbers, values, algorithms. I think those things are important. People want to make sure that contracts are accurate to what we're seeing in the real life NFL. Retuned every position's available abilities to better consider in-game effectiveness of the ability and archetype authenticity. Also made the second ability unlock for most positions 85 overall, was 80 overall in Madden 20. All right, so I feel like, again, archetypes, abilities, stuff like that, it's kind of, you could consider it a fairly new feature to Madden, at least the franchise is concerned. And I guess, it comes with tuning. A couple of years it's going to take for them to really tune, the archetypes, the abilities, and that does have something to do with franchise mode, but still not kind of what I'm looking for quite yet. Let's see. Fix multiple cases in logic of players considered for a dev trait upgrade at the end of the season, not checking the correct stat types. Again, it feels It feels kind of like I'm reading patch notes a little bit, but I'm not going to be, you know, overcritical here. I mean, I shouldn't say overcritical, but I'm not going to be, you know, negative. You know, I want to be constructive. I want to make sure, you know, there's good ideas put out into the universe through this video, through whatever, and maybe hopefully, you know, the communication is received, you know, by the devs in an effort to make franchise better for everybody. Updates to all team back-end depth chart philosophy, so they match the team scheme. Okay, added position-specific offensive lineman archetype progression buckets for OT, OG, and center to capture variance in overall formulas based on positional expectations. Previously, all O-line were pulling from the same progression bucket. Okay, so they're kind of giving every position on the offensive line its own thing. That's kind of cool. Fixed issue where defensive playbooks and schemes for our functional or fictional coaches would be misaligned, e.g. 3-4 playbook with a 4-3 scheme. Okay, so my first impressions reading this, it does feel like a patch note to me. A lot of the stuff that they're putting in here, I have to imagine a lot of franchise players are maybe a little bit disappointed, and I understand. You know, I'm a MUT player. You know, I'm not, you know, in the world as deep as you guys are, but I understand what I'm looking at. I understand that this is probably not gonna cut it. Okay, so I don't know, dude. I would say that at this point, every year I feel like franchise players are waiting for an overhaul, like I said at the top of the video. Every year people are hoping that, you know, maybe, you know, just throw everything off the table, let's start over, let's make it fresh, let's make it deep, let's make it immersive. And it just seems like maybe there's I don't know, too much work to be done, you know, in other modes, maybe too much work to be done in an overhaul. A lot of attention is being played to the face of the franchise mode, which honestly, if it were my decision, I would say let's take the effort of face of the franchise and mash them together to create a very immersive, maybe even cinematic kind of RPG style experience. But I don't know, man. Let's get into this. So let me go ahead and play this video in the background here so you guys can have something pretty to look at while I talk here. So what do I want to see? Well, like I said, a complete overhaul is probably necessary coming up here very soon. I would say maybe now that we're getting into a new generation of consoles, this is something that they can start focusing on, but I don't know. More control to the player, I think, is definitely a huge thing in franchise mode. It feels like there's a lot of things that you really don't have any control over, you know, when it comes to, you know, the attention to detail and depth, you know, stats and contracts, player development, coaches and schemes, etc. It feels like that's something that's been missing, you know, since the days of NFL 2K. And I feel like a lot of guys just kind of want to be a manager. You know, when it comes to me, let's say this year we have a ton of changes with the Chargers. You know, new quarterback, you know, going into a new scheme. We lost Phillip Rivers. The defense has, you know, we have a lot more free agents. I kind of want to see if I can take that team and transform them into a Super Bowl team in a more immersive experience than I want to have with franchise right now. Because right now it's pretty vanilla. And the immersion really isn't there, and it feels like a lot of the mechanics aren't there. And being able to take the Chargers from what they are now to a Super Bowl team almost feels a little bit too easy, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping, you know, more attention to detail is paid in that direction. Now, what I mostly know what I'm talking about is presentation, immersion. You know, I feel like there's a lot of guys out there that really understand the mechanics and the depth details that they're looking for in franchise. I feel like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to presentation. So what would I look for in improving the game with its presentation and immersion? Once depth is addressed, I feel like this is something definitely they need to pay attention to. I think the point of franchise is to immerse the player. You want to give them a first-hand look at what it's like to be in the NFL. And a lot of people will say, well, yeah, maybe that's face of the franchise. Yes and no. You know, a lot of people, like I said before, they want to be a manager. They want to be a coach. They want to be, you know, it feels like a giant, you know, 17-week chess game is what it really feels like. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the NFL. That's why a lot of guys still play, gosh, what was that old game? Very old game. Was it NFL Manager, something like that? NFL Head Coach? I think Head Coach was it. And Head Coach really only allowed you to fiddle around with the surrounding circumstances that made a NFL team. And it was really, really cool in the way that it was designed. I never got to play it. It was before my, not even before my time. I just was fresh into the world of the NFL. But it seems like a really, really cool concept that, you know, Madden can maybe take a page out of their book into giving people that kind of experience in their game as well. I would hook the player with familiarity. Maybe put it from the point of view of maybe like a red zone, you know, hosted by, you know, Scott Hansen or Andrew Siciliano. You really want to give people a hook that they're familiar with in terms of presentation. So you're talking, you know, us, the average NFL fans, we'll sit down on Sunday mornings and, you know, tune into Red Zone, tune into, you know, an NFL game, And the presentation that we have in game right now is interesting. It's very close to what you see in a game, but you want to see that through an entire season progression. You know, maybe add halftime shows like we saw back in NFL 2K. I've studied a lot up on NFL 2K, played it a little bit, you know, when I was growing up, even though I didn't understand it as well as maybe some other guys. But halftime shows, post-game shows, that added a lot of immersion for the player. That made you feel like there's more going on around you than just your singular game every single week. There was more happening in the world of the NFL, you know, in that road to the playoffs than just you, the player. And I want to feel that immersion once again, if it's at all possible. Maybe adding in PIP, you know, picture-in-picture highlights from other games during like 2-minute warnings and stuff like that. You see that in NFL broadcasts. You see them coming in like, oh my God, look what Aaron Rodgers did, you know, in this game versus, you know, the Bears or something like that. And you really don't see anything outside your own game. It's kind of what I'm getting to. Maybe add, you know, fantasy football stats. That's something that's very relevant in today's, you know, NFL experience. It's kind of weird not having refs and cheerleaders. It really does it puts a highlight, it puts a spotlight on just what you're doing. I want to see more happening around me. And I do feel like, and some people aren't going to agree with this, but since they put in the scenario engine, this is something I've thought about a lot. People maybe think cinematics don't matter. But they do. I really think they do. And it's something that I feel like they could add into Madden 21. Just to, you know, create more immersion, to create more, you know, stakes, emotional stakes. You know, it feels like the lack of cinematics in the scenario engines really makes it, again, feel a little bit vanilla. And I don't think players know how badly they want an RPG style experience as well. Because, again, all the mechanics that you were talking about at the beginning, very important. Some guys just want to be a manager. Some guys just want a 17-week chess match, which is awesome. It's fun. It's engaging. But I do think some guys want a form of an RPG. And I'm not saying, you know, full on, you know, let's go conquer, you know, the mountain of evil, whatever they do in those RPGs. It's more of the experience of what happens in between games, the team building factors in between games. You know, the factors of players that aren't so, you know, business oriented. Some players make decisions based on, you know, their aspirations, circumstances, you know, emotion, and that exists in the NFL. And so by adding that extra flavor of cinematics, more of an RPG experience, you know, taking that scenario engine and really expanding on it, it creates a more human experience of Madden 21 rather than kind of a robotic experience. It's very, very, very robotic in my opinion. So the scenario engine definitely needs more gripping presentation is what I'm kind of getting at. But those are kind of my thoughts on the surface, guys. Let me know what you guys think of the new franchise updates here. I would expect it to be a lot like it was last year. I hate saying this because it does seem overly critical, but at the same time, I do think you guys deserve a lot of attention paid, maybe in Madden 22, to what's happening mechanic-wise in franchise. What's happening, you know, to the control that you guys have, the details, the paid attention to depth, I think is very important. But it just does feel a little bit like a patch, in my opinion. But anyway, what do you guys think about the new franchise updates? Are you guys excited? I'm going to go over face of the franchise here in just a little bit. That one is a little bit more interesting to me, and we'll go over that in detail in here just a minute. I'm going to post that today. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time, and as always, stay frosty.